Status check to proceed with terminal count. First stage system. Propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulic.
Go.
Locks.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief. Go. Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director. You have permission to launch.
We have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance.
Liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV rocket.
And we have good indication of separation.
Hello and welcome back to Space Matters. Today we have a wonderful conversation with Dr. Mark Wagner of ARES Learning and Miss Janet Ivey of Janet's Planet.
Do you have the right stuff? Then blast off to Janet's Planet Virtual Astronaut Academy. Learn from real astronauts, real pilots, real space experts, and real engineers. Welcome to Janet's Planet, where we're traveling at the speed of thought.
Hello and welcome back to Space Matters. We have Janet Ivey of Janet's Planet and Mark Wagner of ARES Learning. And I'm going to hand it over to Janet to tell us more about Janet's Planet.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you for having me. It's also wonderful to be on here with Mark. I'm a big fan of what you do. Janet's Planet's been around for the last 21 years, and it's sort of gone from being sort of an entertainment property to more of an entertainment and educational property. And probably in the last couple of years, much more so focusing on space camps. And of course, a year ago in March, what to do? So we went online and said, hey, join us. Nobody knows what to do, so let's join online and talk about space. And the silver lining in the middle of this strange 15 months we've all experienced is that I'm not sure that if you called me Rhonda or Dr. Mark had said, hey, why don't you start that online thing? I'd have been like, no, I tour. I'm in person. That's not what I do. So for the last 15 months, we've been offering online virtual classes Monday through Friday, morning, afternoon, summertime. And so this Friday, we will conclude and literally have sort of created an online school. It's hard for me to even wrap my mind around that, but we've been going now for the last 9 months. Granted, grateful, and again, funded by a NASA Next Gen STEM grant. So a big shout out to NASA Next Gen STEM. Without that underwriting, I don't know that I would have been able to do it, but there have been wonderful things. So we've got space camps coming up in the summer. The ones that are not full to capacity yet are the second week in Newberry, South Carolina, which is all about first flight and aviation. We're going to have cybersecurity experts. Hopefully by that time, Civil Air Patrol and EAA will be taking kids up for their first flight. That is July 19th through 23rd. That's being headed up by my friend, Dr. Lori Bradner, who is a pilot. I will be in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, actually Pottstown, Pennsylvania, July 19th through the 23rd. That camp is for kids 7 to 14. And then in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, that last week on the Bluebell, Montgomery County Community College is hosting both of those July 26th through the 30th. So those 3 weeks are still up for grabs. We still have room. We've got one other week in Newberry that's already got 76 kids. And so we're good there. Sorry, you'll have to see me next year. But the first flight and the aviation camp will be headed up by by my friend Dr. Lori Bradner, who's a pilot. It's going to be fantastic. Tom Scott is going to come in and teach them about cybersecurity. There's a meteorologist that's going to be there, and they're going to be launching Estes rockets. And so we're going to do similarly in Bluebell. Melinda Vittery, who's also a pilot, is going to be traveling with me, who has her own aviation simulator. So it's going to be a fun time. That was a long answer, and I'm so sorry because I've been doing water rockets all day with kids, so that's how we roll, right?
Now, normally, I know that you also give seminars throughout the school year. Will you be doing those online seminars throughout the summer?
I will. And largely what I've done is partner with Trio and Upward Bound. And usually those students would be first generation kind of college attendees. And so they're generally late middle school or early high school students. And so I've partnered with a company out of South Carolina. So I'll keep doing that with students all through the summer.
Fantastic. Dr. Mark Wagner, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thanks, Rhonda. First of all, it's kind of surreal to be on the stream with the two of you because I've been watching all the episodes of Space Matters, and I feel like I've been seeing Janet in watching Janet on streams like this in the past. So it's really fun to be in it. I'm thinking of that Humans to Mars event in the fall, Janet. That was amazing and huge. And really well done, by the way. So fun to be on here with both of you. And I haven't connected with either of you in a while before this, so very cool.
It's been busy, like busier than I think any of us would have imagined.
Who knew, right? We could ditch our commutes and ditch our air travel, and that space fills right up. But
nature abhors a vacuum, kids. Nature abhors a vacuum.
It is good though to hear you're back on the road and working with kids face to face. That's really fantastic. I think by way of a little bit of background, I'm a former high school English teacher, and I got to be the tech coordinator at the high school, and then at the district I was working in, and then at the Orange County Department of Education here in California. And about 15 years ago now, left and started my teacher professional development company. The sort of entirely separate story. I went to space camp a couple times as a kid. I originally went to school for astronautical engineering, and like Rhonda, I thought the way to get to space and be involved with space was to go to the Air Force Academy. I actually got into the Air Force Academy, but I had a shoulder injury at the time that I didn't feel like fixing, and I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for astronautical engineering with spacecraft systems design and orbital mechanics and that kind of thing. But that was not a really great time to be getting into that industry. And now is such an exciting time. And there's an opportunity for my education technology career to kind of come full circle and connect up with my early and lifelong interest in space. So ARES Learning is the current project that sort of brings me here. It's an opportunity to take everything we've learned in education technology and my work in sort of the constructivist education camp, helping kids sort of construct and make their own meaning in open-ended context, and bring that to a school, because we are education research is decades ahead, arguably a century ahead if you go back to John Dewey, of what schools are actually implementing. And with the technologies that are available today and the best practices that are available today, it's going to be done very, very differently. My co-founder of ARES, who isn't with us, but Brendan Brennan, ran a program in Hawaii called the Moonshot Laboratory, where they brought kids in basically one day a week from the local schools, and they got to have the experience where Brendan asked them, what problem do you want to solve? You've got me and all the resources of the school at your disposal, and the kids did amazing things. And these were largely indigenous Hawaiian kids, and their problems they solved were very focused on their cultures. They made planetariums to teach traditional Polynesian navigation, and they made drones to drop safety equipment in high surf, things like this. But really, really fantastic student-driven outcomes. And so we're taking those methods from the Moonshot Laboratory and applying them specifically to preparing kids for humanity's multi-planet future, right? That's rapidly approaching as SN-15 just landed just less than 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, right? And when Elon's talking about having 1 million people on Mars, and we're talking about Artemis going back to the moon and all of that business, kids need to be prepared for that. And my friend Rachel Mann wrote a book called The Martians in Your Classroom.
I love that book.
The people who are going to settle Mars are kids in our schools today. So what are we doing to prepare them for that? And that's kind of the question that ARES answers, preparing kids, not just to be astronauts and engineers, but also to be a part of the space economy that's already developing around that. It's really, really hard to look a decade ahead and not see an industry that stands to be transformed or further transformed by space in the way the internet did over the last 20 years. Right?
Well, I just read an article since you're talking about that.
Yeah.
They're estimating that by 2040, space as a business model will be worth about, $1 trillion or more, or maybe even more than that. But again, when you think $1 trillion, that it's $1 trillion business venture. And what I keep telling kids is that the jobs that you're going to hold, they haven't even invented the title for yet.
Yes. Yeah. And they're going to need all kinds of people. And we see it in, Frank White's roundtable. We've got musicians and artists and things like that in there. And we see it with what KSI is doing, Rhonda, with the sort of space humanities. And I'm spending a lot of time with O'Neill's work from the 70s, right? And he talked about putting these communities of 10,000 and more people in space and needing cooks and teachers. And he was actually one of the few engineers out there thinking about schools in space in these habitats. And there's going to be a place for all those people, clergy and artists and philosophers in the space industry and in the space communities. So it really is for everyone.
It absolutely is for everyone. And one of the things that has stuck with me since I was in the 5th grade to now, which was a long time ago, I was told by the NASA representative that year that by the time I graduated high school, there would be colonies on Mars. And I was already spacebound. I was so driven already at that point, and I believed it. And I absolutely thought that that's how things would pan out. And I'm graduating. There's not a colony on Mars. Our launches are going okay. And really what it was for me that made me feel like it was a tiny corner to turn was the biosphere 2. And Jane Poynter became my hero. And I thought, okay, this is it. This means we're going. This is happening. And then still, this long slog. Now we're finally here. We actually have space construction companies now. And with that, I'd like to get both of your thoughts on what does the future of work moving forward look like now? Janet, you're muted.
The future of work, it's I don't think anybody knows. I think that it's like, certainly we've seen that it can be accomplished, and it doesn't have to be in a brick and mortar. It can be, very Steve Jobs and in your basement. I think it's going to be computer based, and it's going to be coding, and it's going to be some really interesting quantum physics and quantum computing. A friend of mine who's the chief technologist at IBM, Naeem, says that 10 years, he goes, in 10 years, Janet, you'll have a quantum computer. I'm like, oh, right. So, I think when I talk to 5th graders, they're my favorite people, right? And so when you talk to them, they're excited about creating things that haven't been. They're excited about creating a culture and a society that is free from some of the hangups that our current world currently has. And so when I think about work, I do think that it's like, in the kind of like large group of kids that I've been able to be part of their lives this last year, you've got kids who love agriculture. You've got kids who love flight and aviation, and they want to do that. They're not interested in space so much, but they love aviation, or they really want to be an astronaut. Or you've got the other kid who's a geologist and loves fossils and origami. So I think I think it's anybody's guess, but I think work is going to, and I think we've been hearing it from the younger generations, but I think even coming more online, they want to do stuff that matters and that has a purpose and that has a higher purpose. And that is really for the benefit of all, or at least that's at least what I'm challenging the students in my sphere of influence to think about. What can you create that makes your backyard better, your town, your community, and then the grander world? And then let's start there. But that's a great question. I'm not sure the fifth graders would have the answer. I'm not sure I've got the answers.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm nodding along to a lot of that, and I think it's interesting when we talk about space right now how often we can look to this pandemic experience to inform what we can expect, and definitely work doesn't need to be in an office, doesn't even need to be at a desk. It can be virtual and so on, and increasingly I think it'll be in virtual spaces. Some of the spaces that we've been playing with for ARES to make up for the fact that you can't have a makerspace in the middle of a pandemic, right? So where are you gonna design and interact with people? You can do that virtually. But I think that it's also helped us recognize what is missing when you don't have the physical proximity, right? In terms of relationships, in terms of creating and making together. So you'd have a hard time doing the water rockets on a Zoom call, right?
But I will say, so again, it's like, I don't know exactly where you're going, but I will say relationship wise, I mean, I had kids in my 4 o'clock. So again, granted, this one school and again, back in the fall, we were mostly virtual. So today was a grand thing to have to be together. But I will tell you what the virtual landscape has done. It has been able to forge some friendships. I mean, we were done and we were even going a little bit later. It wasn't until 4:50. The class started at 3 p.m. We weren't done until 4:15. And the kids were like, can we stay on a little longer? Because we all wanted, like, you know what I mean? Because they found this relationship. And I'd be interested to see what you found with your kids. I wish I could tout some great education pedagogy, but I think it was routine. Mm-hmm. It was relational. It was consistent, and it was a little bit of constancy in a world of uncertainty. And there are kids who have thrived in this virtual landscape that maybe didn't feel like they had a voice. I don't think it's for everybody. I think if you're an extrovert and you need the friends and you need that community, you're going to need to be with people to feel all of that purpose and stuff. So I think we're pushing even towards some more individualized educational experiences, but I've been surprised. I will say, and I'd love to know your thoughts, I've been surprised by what the routine and how much these kids want to be together.
Well, especially when that is their opportunity to connect, right? And I think it's you're right. It's absolutely possible to develop relationships and develop those connections remotely. But I think it's something that a lot of people, particularly in education, need to think about, because it doesn't come as second nature to everyone as it does to you. And I think there are a lot of ways in which it's even particularly better. If you've got a text chat with a video call, more people can be participating than maybe could in a classroom. And when we started doing for teacher professional development, when we started doing keynotes and everything over the internet, it was amazing, because all of a sudden 300 people in attendance could all participate, right? And if I think about what our dojo did for teaching kids karate, they had to go virtual also, and to their credit, they did some really cool stuff with videos that you could watch ahead of time, and then you could come show the sensei on Zoom, and now they've got a system where you can submit videos and get feedback on it, which is great, but they have to be really careful to make sure that there's still there's not like anonymous comments back from an anonymous teacher somewhere. They've got to still be creating those opportunities to ask how their weekend was and talk about Star Wars and D&D, right?
No, that's the thing. And Rhonda knows this full well. She's been a fantastic mentor and teacher with Janet's Planet this past year. But yeah, you've got to ask the questions of like, so Lucas, how's the soccer going? Are you playing yet? Or, hey Maggie, how's your snake?
Mm-hmm.
and named Toby, and oh, you got a new gecko, because that's the stuff they wanted. Kids want to know. Anybody wants to know. Are you paying attention? But yeah, that has been surprising, and certainly, I mean, this has been like learn by the seat of your pants, and go ahead and offer it and see what works and see what doesn't. And again, it's like one of my things is that there is something, I think, burgeoning that, again, is still very hard to adapt, and how we adapt it for full districts and school systems is still a little bit nebulous, right? But even doing some of the exercises or hands-on stuff, I'd send out mung beans. Well, one kid would really super love watching something grow, while, no, I want to build and engineer something. Or another kid wanted to do the origami, or it was the art, or it was like, no, I want to talk more about this. And so I just keep going. And again, I don't know what the answer is. And it sounds like you guys are way, way beyond where I am with ARES, but it's the autonomy of thought. Yes. It's like, let me present you with these ideas. Then I'm giving you autonomy. Go chase it down. Come back to me and tell me what you found. And I find that when I didn't require, like, hey, here's a challenge. If you finish it, that's great. It'd be groovy. You might win a prize. But if you don't, like, hey, like, you're not paying me to, like, this is not a part of your ultimate grade, that I actually sometimes got more participation, because there wasn't going to be an end. This is going to determine something about you. No, it's just like, it's cool. I'll be bragging on you. I'll probably feature you on my social media. And I don't know what's there. Do you have any idea about that? Because that's where I saw kids, and you really saw, you're like, you're a geologist. Let me push some stuff that way. I mean, what does ARES say about that?
Even in a traditional classroom, you don't want the grade to become like the glass ceiling of achievement, right? Because they're going to do what they need to do to get their 20 points, and that's it. But I have a couple of thoughts in response to what you're saying. One is, one of the things we found out at the beginning of the pandemic was, at least for kids who had the support at home and had the technology and everything, a lot of kids could kind of knock out the core curriculum in like 90 minutes, 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And then the big question is, what are they doing meaningfully with the rest of their day? So our approach has been, let's just harness that, get the core curriculum down to the bare minimum. Let's knock it out in the morning. And then we look at our job, particularly with respect to preparing kids for space in particular, because you don't have to do this part, but look at our job as that sort of shot in the arm. Here's something thought-provoking, something new that probably you haven't heard before. Let's talk about, O'Neill's habitats, that kind of thing. Introduce that to the kids. And then, and by the way, introduce them to philosophy, introduce them to science fiction as literature, introduce them to, governance issues, things like this. That's all this stuff that you wouldn't traditionally get in a school, but is really interesting, thought-provoking, meaningful, relevant to what's coming. But then the key is still opening up and asking them, what problem do you want to solve, or what do you want to learn? We're at your disposal. And it's I think this resonates a lot with what you were saying, because then the kids' own passions, interests, motivations take over, and you're not checking in to see who's turning in their homework and has got their 20 points or anything like that. It's like we're checking some boxes for the state with the core curriculum, but everything beyond that is, what is this kid going to create? What are they going to contribute? Where are they going to go with it? And that's much, much more exciting.
Well, it's exciting. And, it's like what Rhonda has done for two older students that sort of began hopping in on classes. And then she offered a great space settlement class, is that now she's got both of these young people, one's in high school, one's kind of, in her first year of college. It's like she's got them mentors. And that's, to me, it's like what you want to do is you want to get somebody through your program and then go spend some time with Miss Rhonda. Now go spend some time with Dr. Mark. And that is like that scaffolding that you can do and go, hey, I love that you love Miss Janet, but I want you to know these other people. I'm here to put my one or two drops in, and then go learn from everybody. And that's one of the things that I will say that I'm really proud of the space community. It's like you reach out, hey, would you mind coming to talk to a group of, 2nd to 7th graders? I don't know. And somebody asked me, was like, Janet, there's a big gap in your ages. I was like, there's a gap in the ages, but there's not a gap in the passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, especially because we're all talking about space and science. And so you go, yeah, it's like, I've got a few that I need to manage for their age level. But then I kind of teach to the highest level. Kid, you love space? Come on, because we're going to need geniuses. And I say that, maybe I don't mean geniuses. We're going to need people who are really dedicated to figuring out how we solve problems. And there's a bit of genius in that when you employ what you think and your ideas and your imagination. But I don't have a problem. It's like I've got, right now there's a kind of a wide swath of kids from about 7 to 14. And I teach really clearly at that kind of 5th, 6th, 7th grade level. And, there are questions that come up that are like, I don't know that word. I love that you're asking that question. Let's find out what that means, right? So again, I wish I could put it into words, and I don't think I have found that thesis that I can write yet about it, other than there's just got to be a way where we keep handing kids excitement and fun. I mean, today I was really blessed with this large stack of letters and handwritten notes, because I've been pretty much with this group of 125 kids, 5th graders, since last November doing their PBL. And, it's like, it's crazy because you're opening it up and your heart's like 5 sizes bigger. And they're going, this one cracked me up. It was like, I got to tell you, and I love that they started it out, the letter, that way. I didn't really know much about space. In fact, I kind of hated space until until you came. But now I kind of really like it. And that's something. And I'm like, golly, can we get that honest kind of kid? I mean, you know what I mean? Hey, they're 10 and they're going to be honest with you. But I love that sentiment that it's like, let me introduce you to something I love. You might love it. You might not love it. But hey, let's at least explore it together. So I don't know. Like, it's fun to me to see those light bulbs go off and to push kids to stand in their magnificence.
So you both had teed up this question that I did want to involve in the conversation, and this is perfect time to introduce that. Janet, you had said you had made reference to the autonomy of thought, and Mark, you had mentioned grades and glass ceilings. Mm-hmm. And I am all for NASA. I love NASA. I love all the things that NASA does. However, NASA is not the only way to get there anymore. And so how do these components come together to kind of send a positive message that, yes, you can go that route, but there are now these routes also, and demystify the belief system that you have to be the top of your class, you have to be a pilot, you have to love science, you have to be a STEM genius. How do we cultivate moving forward that conversation to really perpetuate it culturally, that kids and people who are already working in their professions, that this is for everyone, and it is accessible, it is achievable?
Well, I don't think we have to work that hard at it, because you literally have Elon Musk saying, I don't care if you have a degree, I want to hire 10,000 people who want to solve problems. It's a totally different approach. And it's, I think, consistent with the kind of open-ended, passion-driven learning we're talking about, because those kids are going to have opportunities to work at space startups and to go work for Elon if that's what they want to do, and to pitch something new to NASA if they get the opportunity. But you look at what's happening in the space industry right now, and the number of it's not just SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, right? The number of startups trying to be the Uber of space, even if it's just to send up CubeSats. There's a group in Maine that's launching rockets with biofuel that's renewable biofuel. There's a group out of Long Beach here that's trying to launch payloads out of an accelerator from Earth. So there's just so much variety, and that's just launching stuff to space. Never mind making an app that uses the satellites that are up there. Never mind what's coming later when we've got people in orbit and on the moon and so on, and they need cooks and artists. It's that cell is almost made for us now. I think it just needs to be a conversation we have with kids to give them the opportunity to connect their passions to what's coming. Right?
I think that's very true. I mean, when they see, Dr. Cyan Proctor, is a fine example. When you see the Inspiration 4 crew, that it's like what might take a traditional NASA astronaut 10 years before their first flight to the ISS, SpaceX is training them within, 6 months. 6-7 months here, and then they'll fly in September and they'll orbit the Earth, and it'll be an amazing mission. I mean, those folks that are having that opportunity are going to have an amazing megaphone to go, if I can do this, you can do this. So I think stories like that are going to emerge. I mean, Kayla Barron was just announced that she's part of Crew 3 for SpaceX. She's been in the NASA astronaut corps. I think the more that we tell the stories, and even thinking about NASA did a great job with Behind the Spacecraft on the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. And you saw Heather Bottoms, who used to be a rockette on Broadway, and now she's working on a Mars rover. Or you see Diana Trujillo, who came here at 17 from Colombia, and, has her space dreams coming true because she's working on the robotic arm of that Mars 2020 Perseverance. To me, it's like we need educators out there who go, wow, this might be a really interesting way. Space might be that beautiful kind of doorway that sort of is that gateway to kids wanting to do technology or learn more about coding or finding out about engineering, and using that sort of kind of as that entry point to those other multiple things that you want them to explore. But, Axiom Space astronaut Peggy Whitson is a consultant for them. I mean, I've got a 12-year-old right now, Nathan Aerospace. I gave you a shout out. He's 12. He's already decided. He's made his logo. That's a space company. He's even talking to others in the group if they want to come and work for him. So I don't know. He may be solving something here in the next year or two. So I think the stage is well set. And what we have to do as people who want this next generation to be that multiplanetary species, and we want to see them back on the moon and onto Mars and wherever else their hearts desire, Lagrange point 5 and making Gerard O'Neill's visions come true. We just have to keep telling them and showing them and telling, this is somebody in space. And this is somebody in space. And yes, it's like, I'm an educator and I'm here to tell you about history of space. You'd mentioned kind of like the Artemis Accords, and I've been fortunate enough to have somebody like Sean Case with Space Court come and talk to the kids about and then afterwards it was like, all right, here's the debate. And we kind of have we'd go over what space law would look like and have those conversations. And it's very funny. 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders go, well, why wouldn't you want to just get along in the first place? And you're like, and out of the mouths of babes. So, yeah. So I think we're in good hands. I just think it's going to take, and Mark, I'd love your thoughts, and Rhonda as well. We just got to keep saying it. And
yeah,
maybe we just have to keep creating the invitation. Is that more true? I don't know.
I hope you're enjoying the conversation thus far. We'll see you again next week for part 2. Stay tuned.